In these uncertain times, it's difficult for us at the Antiques Roadshow to travel the world showcasing your unique items and priceless artifacts from your personal collections. But thanks to the wonders of technology, today we can bring the cameras to you and have you showcase your own items from your own homes live on camera. So please welcome our first guest from Los Angeles, California, Austin, who would love to show us a hand-carved wooden bolt from the early 1700s. Please take it away, Austin.
Going to go.
No,
okay.
yes, you're...
All right, so I have
Okay.
this bolt.
You can take the mask off. Okay, yeah. You're in your own home.
Okay.
No, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
But
That's
it's
all right.
but it's the. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So I have a bolt.
Okay.
I made. My grandfather
Now, these are
gave me
antique.
this when I made it.
Right.
It's old. It was made for putting. It's a bolt.
You know what? I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
And,
I can't do this anymore. No, screw you, Terry.
how
When am I
much
allowed
money
to go
do I
back
get?
outside? This is ridiculous.
Hello?
God.
Look, no, look. I made a bolt. I made.
Well, it's that time again. I need something to do, and I'm a very fidgety, busy-handed person. Big surprise there. My apocalypse hair is getting out of hand. Make like we do on the stream and headband up and get ready for the day. So, this wood block here. Oh, you can't see this. You can't see the wood block. Hold on. Okay. There we go. Now you can see what's going on. So birds. So I'm kind of a busybody. I fidget with my hands a lot, and that's why I have this little kind of fidget toy here that I bought online a few years ago. I have no idea where it came from. One of those, like, wish.com or whatever, the websites that send you into some sort of wallet tornado. And I bought this little fidget cube that is it's good. It's good. It's not bad. It keeps me fidgeting. I'm a busybody. It's nice to have things to do with my hands, but it doesn't quite have the type of fidgeting that I like the most, which is like if you have like a pen cap. I like rotating things. I like this kind of fidget where I get to just twist something with my hand like that. Even if it's two-handed like this is the kind of fidgeting I like to do, is just twists like this. And so I wanted to make my own fidget toy that would let me do that. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to flex the carving muscles. So I'm going to be using my big-ass knife, TM, to try and carve this down. Well, we've got a plan, and we've got a backup plan in the event of impending failure. So main plan is to try and make a wooden bolt, hand carve a wooden bolt. So no like lathe or anything like that. I don't have one of those. And the associated nut. So bolt and nut. Threaded together with a cap on the end, with the idea being that I could then, just kind of thread and unthread the bolt for entertainment. Get my twisty fidget toy that I want, because that fidget cube is nice, but it just doesn't have enough torque to it. You know what I mean? I need more torque in my life. First things first, before I break out the knife and the gloves, I need to mark this thing up a little bit. How do I want to go about this exactly? Well, here's the first thing I want to do. Okay, is I want to draw an X on the top of this thing. So I'm just going to use my speed square here to give me a nice 45-degree angle I can use, so that I can mark the top and bottom of this. And what this X will do is give me a nice center. Nice, reliable center that I can use. Same thing on the other side. Using the 90 degree on this, make this into a star. And then I think I'll be able to use this star to determine the hex for the bolt head. We want to go halfway, and I'm just going to eyeball it. It doesn't need to be perfect for this. It's not like an actual machining bolt. It just needs to look nice. You can see that it's got this star pattern on here, and what we need to do is basically cut off corners like that. So we're going to kind of go halfway between each and every one of these. Okay. And using the 45 to get these corners would be nice, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold this steady enough. Ooh, yes. Okay, so we can at least guarantee that these corners will be nice 45-degree angles. And one more like that. Perfect. So that marks off the top of our bolt head. So this area in each corner is what's getting removed. So we take that, turn it face down on each side, and we want to use the straight edge, the 90-degree edge, to extend those lines. They don't actually need to go all the way down, but I'm going to run the lines all the way down just to make sure we have them. And actually, you know what? I wasn't quite thinking straight there. I do need them to go all the way down, because while the hex of the bolt is only going to be about that deep, right? We then want to continue down, have the bolt be about that long with the threads on, right? And then we need this section down here to make the nut. And it will look nicer if the hex on the bolt and nut match, so do that all the way around. There we go. That's a good angle. So just get that lined up. And I think, yeah, so that is going to more or less define the width of our bolt also. I think that'll look pretty nice. Maybe we'll go a little bit wider. That'll be our interior width, and the threads will go out beyond that point. I'm not sure. That's the fun of winging it. We'll figure it out as we go. I'll also cut a second piece to glue on to the very end of the bolt, so it'll basically have a hex on both ends with a trapped nut in the middle, so the nut will be able to slide up and down the bolt, but not all the way off the edge. That's the idea. That way it's a nice kind of self-contained fidget toy that's fun to play with, but not losable, because I don't know about you, but I'm very accident prone. I lose things all the time. Gloves on, there we go. That way don't have to worry about this very sharp knife while I'm doing my carving. We're just gonna start. I recently sharpened this. If you're gonna get into carving and you're using a knife that you've used for other things, definitely sharpen it. And I'll be a little more careful up here and down here, but I'm gonna use this middle section as an opportunity to kind of get warmed up. So what we're going to do, one more marking to make before we get started here, is I'm going to define how long the bolt will actually be. Okay, so we have that to mark off where the nut is not going to be as thick as this, but that'll give us enough material to make the nut and the cap and have something to play with. We can really take away material in this central section without worrying about anything. That's why we're warming up like this. The other lesson... Wow, that was lucky. So speaking of lessons... Wow. So lucky. The thing you can run into, if, like me, you're not paying attention to the grain direction and how hard you're pushing on the wood, is you can just straight up pop pieces off like that. Like what I just did. And scare the pants off yourself. We got lucky. We got really lucky. It happened to pop off pretty much exactly where we needed it. I just need to take a little bit of extra material off up at the top here. Get it down to size. Okay. So, that's not perfect, but we are going to say that's good enough for right now, because the actual bolt head and the bottom part that will be made into the nut and the cap that will be glued onto the end, those are looking pretty octagonal. The faces are relatively clean. I think any polishing beyond this point would be wasted effort because I'll probably ding things up as I go. I can expect that this thing will end up a little bit smaller than originally designed. Just because that's how carving works. That's, you know, you take material away, believe it or not, it gets smaller. I don't think that really need to be explained, but you get my point. So what I'm going to do now is start working on this middle section right here, and this is intended to become the bolt itself, like the actual threaded section of the bolt. So we're going to pick this as our face for right now, and we more or less want to cut away everything to the right and left of that to make this into an eye shape. So not this kind of eye, like an eye shape. Just in case you didn't get that. I'm not going to worry about shaving this face. We're actually going to keep this face, then turn 90 degrees, do the same thing again, and what we'll end up with is a smaller square right in the middle, and then we can round off the square prism. Yeah, that's the word, square prism. Math. Geometry? That's math. So we'll round off our square prism, and that will be the central shaft of the bolt. Mind out of the gutter. Stop that. All right, so back to work. I'm going to start grinding that out, and then we'll move on from there. We have our eye. We have our eye. Whew. My hands are cramping up. This is it's quite a bit we've done here. But technically, now that we're rotating, it's less material that we're taking away. So maybe I'm deluding myself, but I think it might take less time. So what we're basically going to do is exactly this, like we did here. You can see it actually would probably need to go in a little bit more on this side, but we'll fine-tune it after. We're going to turn it like this and basically do the same thing. So we'll use this as our line, just like we did over here. Not anything super specific, like it doesn't need to be very accurate, but just to kind of make sure that we're in the same spot. Just draw a line across there, and the same right here. We're going to cut those sections out, and then I think it'll be time to start looking at removing this lower segment. I think that's what comes after this. So, away we go. It's time to cut this off. It's rounded off enough that I think it's time to make the separation. I don't think I need this connected for any other reason at this point. I think it's okay. So I think what I'm going to do is cut this in half. And one half will end up becoming the cap, and the other half will end up becoming the nut. So we'll cut here first, and then we'll cut right at the joint. Okay. So there's one. Sorry, I'm all blurry, but there's one little puck right there. So that'll become the nut. And then we cut it right here, and this part will become the end cap. And there we go. I think at this point I'm going to take a break. But here's what we have so far. So I'll see you tomorrow. Or for you in mere seconds. Good morning. I'm back. Today the plan is to cut the threads into the bolt, bore a hole into this puck right here, and bore a hole halfway through this puck. And then we need accompanying threads on the inside of this. If we can pull it off, I'm okay with it just looking like a, connected nut. That's my backup plan. If it doesn't work, this just won't actually have any threads inside of it, and it'll just slide on, and this will look like a bolt. So this will have threads no matter what, just for looks. I'm going to try and make them even and reliable, and the way I'm going to do that is with a piece of graph paper. So let me grab that. So I'm going to fold this in half so that it's a little more resilient. Might actually go ahead. Let's go ahead and fold it again. And my plan, this is what I've kind of had in mind the entire time, is to use this graph paper to gauge our bolt. Or not gauge, rather, but we'll be gauging the threads. I don't know if that's the right word, but we're going to use the separation between the lines on the graph paper to define the separation between the threads. In line with each of our octagon edges, I will place... Actually, let's think about this. So I will hold the paper like this along the bolt, and then take my pencil has vanished since last night. It was under my glove. And then we're just going to mark for every blue line. And then I think those will be nice wide threads if by the time we get to here, it has gone up by 1. So we'll skip 2 and go to here. That way we'll end up with 4 marks all the way around. If it coils faster, I think that will end up tightening the threads. Okay, so we skip 1 and go to here. But I'm pretty sure if I have it essentially so that the slope of the thread, if you look at it like the line could be shallower going like that as it goes around, or steeper going like this as it goes around, right? And then it would coil in that direction. If we don't have it going up quite as fast, so if from here to here rather than from here to here is an entire step up, I think it will be easier to thread this. And basically what I'm going to do is, after I've drawn these lines all the way around, so we're going to skip 1 again, go to here. After I've drawn these marks all the way around, I'm going to hand draw the coils to use as guidelines, and then cut the grooves. So in between each of the lines that I've drawn will end up being the peak of the thread, and then the space in between will be the valley that I will try to carve down as deeply as I can using an X-Acto blade. So we'll see how that goes. I'll probably start it with this and then move on from there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So then we want to kind of by hand just trace from one up to the next and hope this gives us a reliable thread. Now there is a non-zero chance here that I am completely out of my mind. And what I mean by that is it's entirely plausible that this is not going to work in the slightest. And that for threads to work, it needs to be super, super, super precise. As usual, I'm hoping it's going to work. But this time, I'm actually prepared to accept some level of failure. Because if threads aren't working, they're just not working. Like, it would take me ages and loads more precision and likely some sort of different equipment to fix that kind of a problem. I am going to do my best here to try and make it actually thread, and then if it doesn't, it's just going to look like a bolt. I don't want it to look half-assed when it's done. Even if the threads aren't actually functional, I still want it to look like a bolt. Whether or not they're actually able to run a bolt or run a nut through. So far, I think we're getting a pretty good coil. I prefer to write things out by hand. I find it sticks in my mind better that way. But since I was sitting there trying to sketch out this idea on the graph paper, I realized I could just use the graph paper to measure out my threads, and I gotta be honest with you, I think that theory holds water. I'm already concerned that this isn't going to work because this isn't perfectly round and the width of it isn't consistent, which means these grooves are going to need to be really deep to have any chance of this working at all. I could spend some time rounding this out more, but I want to just try and get it done. So I'm going to go for it and just start cutting these grooves. So I'll be going between, so we drew all these lines and I'll be going between them with the knife, first with the big one and then coming at it with the X-Acto blade. So I'll put a fresh blade into here and start going through it with the X-Acto blade to try and get some fine tuning. And I might even break out I might break out the Dremel, but I doubt it. A Dremel would make this very easy because I could just, take all those notches out. But let's try and do it with hand tools. We'll get especially into hot water when we're trying to thread the puck that will become the bolt. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I will drill a hole through this first just to save me some time. You could bore through it with a knife, but that would just be needlessly time-consuming. You know what? Watch the time lapse. I might end up deciding to do that too, because I'll decide that's also cheating. I did say hand carved, so. All right, gloves are going on. Let's dive into it. Honestly, this is working way better than I thought. The groove is looking really solid. It will get a little more interesting, and I'm going to have to be very careful about chipping pieces of this as we start doing the neighboring grooves. So I'm going to skip one, and we'll do the one in between. There are 4 openings at the bottom, which means there's one that we've started but haven't brought all the way down to the end yet. I'm not going to do that until the very end, but we have one there. 2, 3, 4, and then we find our way back to the one we were already on. So there are 4 channels total. We're going to do this one next, this one right here, so that we have a solid piece of wood on either side. Then we will go through and very gently do these last 2 channels, because that's when we have to be very careful about getting the edge of the bolt thread nice and solid. And I was thinking, rather than making a proper nut, I think I can make this function by cheating. Rather than having it'll look like a nut effectively, because it will be the same size hole, it will fit on there, it will look like a nut. Rather than having the so we've got our nut right here, right? And the inside of that channel right? So if you had a cross section of the nut, right? The channel's right here, and the threads usually go like that on the inside of the channel. And those meet up nicely with those threads and make a nice, perfect mesh that's very rigid and strong. And we don't need it to be very rigid and strong. We need it to spin properly. So rather than doing all of this, the inside of our nut, if we look at the cross section, okay, so there's the channel. It is just going to have a raised bump in the middle. So if you look down on it from the top, okay, there's just a bump right here on the inside. And that bump will notch into one of these, which will keep it in line without it having to be super precise and make this a functional fidget toy without having to do perfect threads. And I'm making that call right now. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to properly thread this nut because carving these threads is not too bad on the bolt where it's external, but getting in there to try and do that on the interior of the nut and have it actually thread properly, I think is asking too much. So I think it's going to work just fine. So diving back into carving the rest of the grooves. I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so that's 2 right there. Again, I still haven't carried it all the way down to the base because I don't want to weaken this until the last possible moment. This blade is starting to dull a little bit. You can also see I broke the end off there. Tends to happen with these cheap little X-Acto blades. I do have another blade to slap on there if things start getting a little too rough. But I'm going to be very careful as we move into... Hold on, let me just get that little piece right there is bothering me. There we go. Okay. As we move into the other 2 grooves, I need to be very, very careful because now we're not going to be creating nice, thick walls like this. We are going to be cutting between, right in here. And so these edges where I originally drew those lines are going to get very thin. So these next 2 aren't going to be as fast as the first one. For you, it'll be more or less the same because time lapse. But it's going to be slower for me because I want to make sure that I'm not going to chip the wood. And I expect it probably will happen. But fortunately, with this new design that I've come up with, I don't think I need to worry too much about that. Especially because that in this case, it's only actually interacting with one of the grooves and only ever will be. So, technically speaking, if one of them's messed up, I just avoid that one. All right, away we go. So this is totally working. I'm almost nervous about how it could possibly go wrong. Things are feeling rigid enough that I think this is going to work. I'm pretty excited. It's looking like this is going to work out just fine with minimal errors. How often does that happen? Yeah, so I'm going to continue down the line. Cut this groove, cut the other groove, bring these all down to meet the bolt head, tidy up the bolt head. I'll be jumping in to talk you through everything that's going on here, but we're in business now. The next most difficult thing I expect is going to be putting the nut together so that it can go on there. So that'll be interesting, but for now, it's time to finish cutting these threads, so let's do it. Okay, so there's our first error. You can see a chunk got taken out of the thread right there. So we're going to keep being very careful as we move on. There's basically nothing I can do about that. I tried to put pressure against it in order to pop one of the pieces out, and you can't do that when it starts getting this fine. I'm going to hold on to this small piece that got knocked off. So there's a chance I'll be able to get this back on and have it not go anywhere. It might be fine. But that's not going to be feasible until later. So I have a kneadable eraser here, that I'm going to stick this piece into. There's no way I'm going to lose that. That's not bad right there, guys. So I'll get the lines off the top. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that with sandpaper or just erase it. But now what we need to do is try and carve out the nut, which is going to follow this design. So essentially I need to take the puck right here, okay? And the idea is going to be to carve a hole through the center of it. And yes, I am going to try and carve the hole through the center. I'm going to decide where that nub is going to be, and that nub is only as wide as the grooves in the threads here. If this works, it's going to be very exciting. The ability to twist this up and down, I think, will make this a very satisfying fidget toy. And it's palm-sized, which I like, because I like to fidget with things that are palm-sized. So that's going to be nice. I will probably use this thing all the time. I'm pretty excited that it's working. So let's try and make the nut. We're going to start working on that. So I'm going to use this cross that's drawn on the end to start gouging a hole through the middle with the large knife. After we get a good ways in, I'll probably switch to the smaller knife, pull out a fresh blade, and dive into that. So we'll keep plugging along. I might not worry about the small dings in the threads that happen, because they're not that significant, and maybe I would be better off deepening the groove instead. So let's just see how it goes. Alright, so we've got the hole. It appears to be about the right width for the bolt. Might need to be a little bit wider, but what I'm going to do first is carve out the nubbin. So right now you can see it's an indent in the hole that goes all the way through. So my plan is to basically shave the top and bottom of that off until it's as narrow as one of these channels. So that's what we're doing now. And then we'll try to test fit and do the tweaks that are necessary to find out if this is going to work. Wish me luck. Okay, so two crucial things have gone wrong in the process of trying to do this. I'm very close to making this work, but I'm going to need to take a pause because a small piece of the threading broke off that's going to be crucial to starting this process. So you can see this section right here has come loose. So I've put some construction adhesive on there, and I'm going to let that cement into place before I touch the bolt again, which, according to this bottle, is unfortunately 24 hours. So that's a huge delay in the process here. This thing is almost done, but that means that I'll have to finish up this video tomorrow. So what I'm going to do is also attend to the other mistake here, which is that my little nubbin inside is coming loose. It's not completely loose, so I'm going to get some glue on it immediately. And then I'm not going to touch this thing for 24 hours. I'm going to put it down. I am going to reach in here and apply some adhesive. underneath that point and around it. It will prevent any future problems. I don't think this nubbin needs to be made any smaller. If it does, we'll have to re-glue. But because it looks like this is working, I'm going to give this the 24 hours it needs to dry and then come back to it. Alright, so I'm back. It is now the following day. The glue has dried. It looks like it's dried very, very well. I don't think those pieces are going anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap out for my last fresh blade. And I'm going to use that to clean up the glue and smooth out any of these connections, because I did do some carving after that piece broke off, so it's not lining up perfectly in some places. Then I'm going to widen this hole just a little bit more and soften the nubbin, which is actually going to be the very first thing I'm going to do, because that's going to be the hardest spot to get to. So I want to do it while the knife is at its absolute sharpest. So I'm going to round off the nubbin. You can see this groove right here is a little bit wider than the rest of them. So I'm hoping it will work as the main channel. So here's the plan. Round this nub off and make it as smooth as we possibly can to avoid it getting caught on anything. Widen the hole to make sure it goes over the bolt nicely. And clean up the connection where I glued this piece of thread back on. And then I think we put the cap on and it's done. That's what I'm pretty sure the deal is. If I'm not crazy, or maybe I won't do the cap. Maybe I don't need to. Maybe I could just leave that as a separate piece. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens, but we're going to get going with that now. So my nubbin broke off again. Sometimes you just can't hold on to your nubbin. So it fell off again. So I have an alternate plan. I am going to very quickly use a drill. Sorry. I'm just going to drill a hole through, okay? And we'll use a toothpick as our catch. And that'll mean that we can have something that's strong, fed through, and then that'll catch onto the bolt. I don't know enough about how, how that works on a structural level, but what I know is that it's splintering a lot and it's breaking along the grain very easily. So we're gonna change tack. See, I recently lost a few of my drill bits. Well, that's not ideal. Okay, I got a solution. Sometimes you just gotta go for broke. So this is my Dremel. I am going to just drill a toothpick-sized hole through the side of that nut, and that is all I'm doing with the Dremel. Just need the tool itself, and hopefully I have a nice narrow bit here that I can use to bore through. It's not really what I should be using this for, but that's okay. Okay, and we're through, and I don't want to do much more because that thing will just cut through the wood like butter if I let it go sideways. So, hole is too big for the toothpick as I expected, but let me unplug this so that it's safe. There we go. So, my impatience got the better of me, unfortunately, but you can see this nut drops over the top, and if I thread that in there, then it becomes entrapped. So it really only can stick out about that much. So what I think I'm going to do is actually break this off, smooth off the end here. Ooh, this gives me a new idea for a video. How about a toothpick sculpture? Yeah? Toothpick sculpture? Let me know in the comments. Alright, so that's now a rounded off little nub. I think if it's about there, so let's try that. If it was right about there, is there a way for me to hold that reliably in place? Well, I would imagine it's going to be pretty difficult to force it further into an eraser. Damn it, I knew I was going to do that. Round those edges off again. Round, but not pointed, because the point has a tendency to fray, which I think is going to cause even more problems. So we'll stick this down into the eraser like that. Getting a good amount of resistance there. So now it's sticking through. Oh, it's actually not sticking through enough. So let's pull it back out a bit. There we go. Then we can feed it through like that. Hold it in place with the eraser. And let's see if this goes through. So it should thread on there. And then we should more or less be able to take it down the line. Just barely sticking out like that. It's about as far out as our original nubbin. Looks like that does the trick right there. That's the thickness we want. So we keep track of that eraser, and we can mark up the toothpick where it's supposed to be. And then we need to glue it into the nut here. And then I think we're good to go. Can I get 2 of these in here? I'm going to try and get a second toothpick in beside it. Because if we can make 2 that are the same size, and then this one gets cut to be as long as the line that we left on it. Right there. Yeah, this is definitely making me think toothpick sculpture. I think we'll be able to get 2 of these toothpicks in here, so we're going to try and do that. So that's lined up just like that. And there we go. Alright, I'm going to glue that in there. I got a good feeling about this. Those 2 in there look very solid. I'll be able to shave off that extra rubber after it dries. I just got some glue on my thumb. After this dries off in another 24 hours, I think this will be good to go. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It's been a blast as always. I might be doing that toothpick sculpture. I've got some other sculptures in mind. I also have some digital creative projects in mind. So the folks who get to decide on that are the folks who support over on the Patreon. You guys are awesome, and you keep this channel going. Thank you so much. I love doing this, and if you guys weren't doing that, I wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you'd like to be part of that support team and vote on future projects and future videos and whatever, and also get some goodies and powers on the UECraft Minecraft server if you're hanging out over there, then please do go support on Patreon. It means the world to me. And hopefully what I'm about to cut to is a working fidget toy. So, see you on the other side of the cut. I did it. Okay, so it works. One bit of bad news. It's kind of threaded backwards. It's counter threaded. That's a thing. Damn. Yeah, so it's threaded backwards. I'm sure somebody noticed that a long time ago and has been waiting for me to point it out to you. Yeah, it's counter threaded. The threads are going the wrong direction, which means that it is righty loosey, lefty tighty. Damn it! So close! It's okay. The point is it works, and you can see that there's this little extra bit of wood. This is just a wood shaving I glued onto the outside to make sure that the toothpicks going through could not be pushed back out. It's been actually 2 days, It is now Friday, so this has been drying for 2 days. And it works. It works really well. So, I mean, that's the project. That's it. It's done. One last little clip, and that's it for me to say goodbye. There are still lines on it. Pretend you didn't see that. They're not there. Stay safe. It's been a blast as always. And I got a bolt. So I'll see you later.